destroyed, gets recycled. Only physically we're so poisoned and diseased in our mind. Of course, it physically manifests on the planet. We have so much waste, it's disgusting. We're hoarders. We don't know how to let go. Okay, that's all I had.
No, we're working on it. It's just good to bring awareness to it. And this is how we notice what needs to be healed. We bring it to the surface. Like Sibyl said, if the alcoholic wants to heal, go ahead and admit you have a problem. First things first. And then we bring it to the surface and we get real with it. And we start dissecting it. So I think that's what the coronavirus is doing, amongst other things, is showing weakness in places we need to heal. And it's not necessarily a negative thing. It's a blessing so that we can see it right out in front of us, not just the spiritual people or the astrologists, but everyone can see this happening. And that's what it took, is waking everyone up so that we could do something. It's all in the workings now. We'll do something. We're going to do a lot, but it'll be interesting to see what we do. But I do see this rattling us enough to make changes. It'll take time, but I see it happening.
And it's an experience. You know, that's what all experiences are, even our small personal ones, you know, whether it's adverse or pleasant. Every experience is teaching us something, helping us to learn and grow. Like you said, this one is another experience, but we call it the coronavirus. And, you know, it's going to be the coronavirus era and this, that, and the third. And we shouldn't get attached to all that. That's a part of letting go as well. We need to learn, like you said, see the beauty of it, of this opportunity, and learn and grow from it. And not hang on to the conspiracies or, you know, the disease that's, you know, been sprinkled out all over the globe. You know what I'm saying?
Fear-based reality.
Exactly.
Thrown all around. Ladies, we're going to cut to a commercial, but we'll be back in 1 minute, everybody, and we're going to hand it back to Sibyl.
You're listening to Third Eye Political Radio, and we really appreciate you joining us. And when you have a moment, why don't you check out our sister station, Heart Over Ego Radio, where we offer a lineup of shows that are guaranteed to raise your vibrations and guide you into your best life. We offer shows on Sundays, Everyday Psychic Radio, Mondays, The Alchemy Sisters, Tuesdays, Radical Spirituality, and on Wednesdays, All for One is Love. And then we close out the week on Fridays with Rain Radio. Amazing shows produced for you 5 days a week, only on Blog Talk Radio. That's right, it's our sister station, Heart Over Ego Radio.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Political Star Talk, and you are on Third Eye Political Radio. You're here with Jennie, Sonya, and Sibyl. And I want to let everyone know that we are getting a new commercial updated because we have new shows over on Heart Over Ego, and I want Sonya to tell us the right name of her show because it was mispronounced in our current commercial.
The title of the program is One for All is Love. So ONE, the number 4, ALLISLOVE. And that's because you have to start from within. Everything begins from within, one for all. But you got to start with yourself first. Charity begins at home. Okay, that's it.
I love it. And Sibyl, where should we pick back up? Do you wanted to cover some things about certain states opening up and other states not? And
well, I would first like to respond to Sonya because that is because I was kind of sitting here thinking, what do I want to talk about next? And I just thought, well, I'm going to see what Spirit presents me with. And Sonya just did that. and so in this Plutonian time, and I want to say Pluto is of course, there's a discussion going on in the astronomy community whether Pluto is a planet or not. And like I say, everyone is an astrologer says, well, I wouldn't want to be that guy, or that person because Pluto is such a powerful being, entity, archetype, energy, however word we want to say. And Pluto is god of the underworld. And Pluto always brings big transformational times when Pluto is very active. And Pluto touches a core wound to bring it to the surface. And it takes often, like I said, time for it to process and for it to happen. Just for an example, when Pluto was in Sagittarius, I've talked about this before, Sagittarius, and it's in Sagittarius about 15 years or so, something like that. Sagittarius rules religion, and we saw the pedophilia scandal break during that time. It's still unfolding. It's like that wound is still draining. There's so much there. Well, when we're now moving into Capricorn, and Capricorn is our civilization, it's our structures, it's our culture. And so we're seeing those wounds opened, and it takes a long time for them to heal. But as people, let's just say in the Catholic Church, it took parishioners, they had to be able to heal it. They had to admit that this was happening, and that was hard to do. And so the same thing is happening in our culture. But on the personal piece, Pluto's always personal. It's always personal, and it's collective. So it's our own personal core wounds that are coming up to be as related to, I'm going to say our patriarchal wounds. I had something really good here, and I can't remember what it was. I know what it is. Okay, it is about the false sense of security, of what we think and how we give up our own sovereignty and personal power when we're afraid. And Pluto is bringing that up. And this, and this is a shadow. This is a big shadow side of what is happening here. And so on one hand, we definitely don't want to go to the conspiracy theories, because that's just another, fear story. And yet we need to call the truth out for what it is. And that is what it is. It is, Pluto always shows us where we've disempowered ourselves, personally and collectively. And when we can look at it, we can make different choices. When we can open our eyes to the truth of our own patterns, our own emotional patterns, and where we plug in around fear, because it's bringing up fear. Okay, and this is really, really significant. So yes, on one hand, we don't want to trade one fear-based story for another, and yet be honest about what is happening around our own sovereignty, and especially around our bodies. Our bodies belong to us. They were given to us by Mother Earth. The state doesn't own them. The church doesn't own them. Our partner doesn't own them, although we may have made agreements with other people to around our bodies, but that doesn't mean they own our bodies. And I feel like this is a big piece of what is coming up. That's the thing this coronavirus is bringing up. Who owns our bodies? And we do. And that is the thing to remember. That's one thing that is coming up. But there's lots of different things. So we have to keep our eyes open and not fall into, as they say, taking the blue pill. In the Matrix, the blue pill was the people who went back to sleep. And because it's safer. It's safer to be asleep. And that's not a judgment. And that's important to stay out of judgment. And this is where I had to go to, was honoring people's choices of where they were, and that other people's decisions, that if I'm allowing other people's decisions to impact my inner peace, I will never find it. So it is how to hold our seat in the midst of this, because it's all happening at once. It isn't like the paradigm falling down and it's all going to be, bed and roses. It's going to show us where we allowed it to happen and where we're still allowing it to happen in our own selves. It's calling upon our own personal power and sovereignty. So that's one piece, and that's the hard piece. And the other hard piece is, it's the good piece. It is that while we are in this in-between time and the old is falling apart and the new is not yet created, we are in that understanding that we create on the etheric realm first. We envision it first. We set our intentions, what my spiritual tradition calls it, putting a prayer in motion, and then getting behind that prayer and knowing that the Creator, Spirit, God is leading that prayer, and to know and to leave cracks. We don't have to have all the plans. I was listening to Michael Meade. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a great, I'm going to say mythologist. I'm not really sure what he calls himself. But he was saying, talking about this time, he called it in liminality. And that it's one of those things where we can create, envision, and when we get to a point, like we can only go so far, because we then have to trust Spirit and Creator that something will come in to show us the rest of the way, that we don't have to see everything. We don't have to put, like clearly defined plans in place. It is initially having the vision and understanding that when we need to know something, it will come through, and trusting that. So it is allowing spirit to come in, and recognizing that, these are times when we don't have complete control. That is the other piece that is coming up. And we don't have control, it brings fear. And so being able to follow the energy and flow with it, and being adaptable and flexible, like here at just for an example, I do live in an intentional community. It's called a housing cooperative. And so the collective will here, is always stronger than the individual will, which is the good news and the bad news sometimes. But, anyway, we have recognized that with the changes, we have to be flexible and adaptable. The way we operate, we've had to make a lot of changes because we don't know. California is very strict. I don't know where you're living, but boy, California is just, their social distancing and their guidelines are strongly enforced and very strict. And we don't know when we'll be able to meet as a community again. So we've been meeting on Zoom, and we've also now opened that up to our prospective applicants, or applicants who want to be part of this community, and realizing that it's much better to meet in person, but we don't know if we're going to be able to or not. We're following the energy. And so being able to be flexible and adaptable to what is, and envisioning, putting your prayer in motion and getting behind it, and envisioning the world that you want to be, and believing that pieces will show up when you need them. Yeah. So anyway, so that's what I want to share about that. And I know you wanted to ask me about something else, Jennie. So.
No, thank you so much for that. I got a little echo. I think we wanted to talk about states opening up.
Okay, what I think about states opening up is I think we're following the energy. I just do. I think it's I think it's important, and I think it's a good thing that states open up, and that's my personal opinion. I'm saying the bigger picture is telling us that we're still going to be on pause, so it's going to be up and down. And the other piece is, like I say, this testing, and this is a piece of the answer to your question. My own personal opinion, I think states need to open up. I think people are suffering. We need to open up. I don't feel this big fear of the virus, and like I have said, I think there are hot spots and there are not hot spots. And this is where good science comes in. You ask the right question. So the question is, why are some places hot and some places not? Well, the answer is not the simple answer that, they closed earlier, they did this, they did that. Go deeper. The places that are hot spots are places that have higher pollution levels. They're toxic. There's levels of toxicity are much higher. And, so I really think things like that are what really need to be followed. But, I do also want to say, too, this Pluto piece is personal. So it's very much about our own personal inner work that we are doing right now, our own personal toxicity. We have the outer toxicity and we have the inner toxicity. And so all of those places in us, like I said, it's not just fear, but those places that are coming up to to be looked at within ourselves. So I think we need to open up on a personal level. The stars, they're showing us the bigger picture.
Beautiful. Glad for it.
Yeah.
So I was watching the news for a few minutes today, and they were talking about the numbers have been going down in states that they opened. Did you guys catch any of that on the news?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw it. They were saying they had a few states lined up, and that they, in the past 2 weeks, the numbers have been decrease